It's time for the Shop Report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's what's happening. Joining me on the program, of course, is none other than my man from the NYC, a.k.a. Rucker Park, Brother Richard. Brother Rich, what's happening, man?
All good and this good. Always honored to be on with you and all of our guests and all of our friends.
And my man on the other side of the table from up north, Joey James, a.k.a. Double J. Tell the people what you say.
Always an honor and a pleasure to be on the program. Looking forward to diving into today's topics with everyone.
Yeah, topic as in singular, not topics as in plural, due to the fact that Barbershop Jay, I'm talking in the fourth person here, is on his way to a vacation here in the next week or so. We are recording one topic per segment, per show, per episode. It's non-scripted, of course. So I just wanted to remind the folk out there, because Double J sometimes gets ahead of himself, because for a minute there, I thought he was going to delay in responding, and I was going to have to hit the bell on him. You know, I don't like hitting the bell, but I'm going to start using this bell. Ding, ding, Mike Tyson, Ali, down goes Frazier. All right, anyway, let's dive into this topic today. All jokes aside, whatever side you want to put them on is fine with me, but seriously, all jokes aside, we all know at times, and I generalize here, when it comes to fandom, sometimes as sports fans, we allow our fandom to make us look foolish or to get up out our hookup when it comes to our fandom. Now, we've been said numerous of times on this program or on this show, we've had plenty of discussions, you know, about players and performances and, you know, things of that nature. But let me be clear to all those out there who listen. Despite my venom, if you would, like one guy so eloquently put, when it comes to players, I try to stay strictly to a player's performance, per se. But make no mistake about it. When it comes to the player versus the establishment, I am all on the side of the player. I'm giving the player the benefit of the doubt first. That's right. Name whatever name or player you want to name that you don't think I like or that I hate or whatever the case may be. No names here, please. I repeat, I'm on the side of the player first and foremost, especially with the climate now in regards to the NCAA and the show we did a couple of days ago or a week ago, or whatever that time is. You know, senility is real. In regards to Mark Emmert and the NCAA and this FBI investigation and this cheating scandal and the list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? In other words, the establishment is on one side of the ledger and the player and players are on the other side of the ledger. And when I step back, and this outside looking in, whatever the case may be, when I step back and look at this, I'm saying to myself, when it comes to compensation or monies or compensatory or whatever else other adjective you want to use to describe the folks that are the entities, they getting paid. And them cats on the other side of the table, they not getting paid. But the folks on the right side of the table getting paid off the player. So anytime, every time we see a situation regarding this ongoing discussion of should they, shouldn't they, we're going to make mention of it, period. Because at the end of the day, this next story I'm going to read, and this story or subject for today, is about Josh Jacobs. He's the running back for Alabama. And you know me, I love the underdog. Brother Rich, you especially. You already know. I'm an underdog guy. But when I look at what...
Dog pound.
Oh, boy. You can't help yourself, can you? When I look at players and where they come from, and this is the thing I'll talk about folks and they fandom, when they speak out on things like, you know, like, for instance, the NFL players, and they're so dismissive about a player's injury. I cannot stand, I can't help but say this again, too. I cannot stand to hear people say, when they talk about NFL players, oh, he can't stay on the field. That irks me to no end. That's asinine. for people to say that out their mouth without giving some thought to the fact that the nature of the guy's occupation and the hazards that come along with. You feel what I'm saying? But with no hesitation, won't say nothing about ownership. And if so, it's very little, but got a whole lot to say about a player. I just ain't down with that. When I look at players and where they came from to get to the point that they are at, and I see a player, especially when it comes to football, any level, and I see a player who wants to renegotiate his contract 2 years into a 5-year deal because he done outplayed that 5-year deal within 2 years, and to hear the backlash from fans or to see what had happened was from ownership, I got a problem with that. Or this is the one that really, really gets up under my skin. And Double J, you know this. You're on Facebook like me. How many times can you count the number of folk on Facebook, on the Book of Faces, will speak out on whether or not if a player is worth whatever monies that he's being allotted or potentially in line to get or whatever. I don't like saying whatever, but you get the idea, right? How many times, Double J? I know.
I would need a lot of time to count all of those.
Yeah, you would need a calculator, right? Or abacus. But anyway, I'm going to read you a story because we talked a few weeks ago about a player that the Browns signed, a guy who actually had to work his way into an opportunity to get in front of Alonzo Highsmith, and I forget Highsmith's position with the Browns. But anyway, he was somebody like a scout or something or another. Well, anyway, he was the person that you wanted to get in front of. And we talked about Sheehy Giuseppe, who slept outside the compound and so on and so forth. We all remember that. Okay. Well, here's another story similar. This is Josh Jacobs again, the Alabama running back. I found this article, and I'm going to read to you the entire article. So if there's folks out there who not really readers, or all my folks that are readers, hop aboard or come along. But the folks that's not, then hey, go back to your devices. I just kept running. I didn't know what else to do. I was just walking up to the gas station with 3 of my friends when a car pulled up in front of us. One of the dudes inside said something. I didn't hear him. One of my friends said something back. I don't remember what. The car sped off. The car sped off. We kept on walking. Then we saw the same car loop back around. The lights cut off at first. That's when we started running. Then came the gunshots. We scattered. I was booking it down the sidewalk. Out of the 4 of us, the car chose to follow me. And guess what? The dudes inside just kept on shooting. I broke off and jumped over a fence into somebody's backyard. I juked my way through a bunch of kids' toys and jumped another fence. I was trying to calculate how far I was from home when I realized I couldn't go home. These dudes were following me. And I didn't want to lead them to my house, so I just kept running. I ran for about 10 blocks, one gear, nonstop, 100 miles an hour. Faster than I've ever run in my life, just crashing through backyards and changing directions until I couldn't hear any gunshots or car engines. When I finally stopped, I had no idea where I was. I just remember it felt like all the air had been sucked out of my chest at once, like I had been punched in the gut. That was the first time I got shot at. I was in middle school, about 13 years old. Let me repeat that. About 13 years old, if I remember it right. And I'll be honest, I was scared, man. But being scared isn't even the worst part. The worst is when you get used to it. Let me repeat that again. The worst is when you get used to it. Now let me stop right there for a second before I read any further. For all you holier than thou folk out there who would see this guy and not know his story so far to this point and have something to say in a negative connotation when he decides to, or when he gets drafted by an NFL team and he decides to hold out for more, and you all get, oh, he's ungrateful and he's this, I just say, Check the man's track record or resume. Huh? Do some reading. Check his history first. You see? And it's not just in sports. It's in every day as far as I'm concerned. We got folk out here who quick to have an opinion about something without doing any research at all whatsoever. This is why and I don't say this as a pat on the back to myself or nothing like that, I take pride in doing as much research on a potential or possible subject as I possibly can. And just because I may lean one way more so than another way don't mean I'm afraid to tell the truth about it anyway or either way. It's when you get used to it. This is this man's life. If you haven't experienced it, and if I'm not mistaken, isn't there, I don't want to say a proverb, Brother Rich, but a quote or something somewhere about walk a mile in a man's shoes first before you judge him?
A Chinese thing.
Okay.
It's in every culture, but yes, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, right. Okay.
Absolutely correct.
Right. So the worst is when you get used to it. Now, fast forward and you see this guy in the NFL, regardless of whatever team it is. And again, his contract come up. And he holding out. He not going to voluntary. But guys like Tony Grossi here in the Cleveland media, in regards to OBJ, keep going over and over and over and over again. Like, why he ain't here? As if to make some sort of, I don't know, something out of nothing. If it's voluntary, why you keep regurgitating it or keep talking about it as if though to imply it's mandatory? Because you just want a story. Let me read on. When you hear gunshots and you don't even run, when you see people fighting in the street and you don't even look twice, when the spotlight from a helicopter shines through your bedroom window and you just pull the shades down because it's just another day in the life. I was so relieved when I got home. Not only because I got there safe, but because I had a home to go to at all. I'm trying to figure out for the life of me. Help me to understand. And I don't know their background either. But these folks like Mark Emmert, at what point in their lives did they experience something like this? But yet they are entitled to payment off the name of a Josh Jacobs. Let me read on. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. When I was in 4th grade, my parents split up, unfortunately. I went to live with my pops. He had just moved out of his apartment. He'd had another one lined up, but it wasn't ready yet. It was supposed to only take a couple of weeks, so we stayed with some relatives for a bit, but the apartment took longer than expected. We had no family left to stay with and nowhere else to go, so we slept in my dad's Suburban. I would shower in the locker rooms after football practice. Then my pops would pick me up and drive around to look for a spot on the side of the road to park for the night, somewhere out of the way. I would lie down in the back seat and he would be up front. I remember he had a gun. And whenever he laid his seat back at night, he would always keep it on his chest with his hand on it, just in case. If he ever slept, I didn't see it. Every time I woke up, whether it was morning or the middle of the night, he was awake, watching out, protecting me. We slept in that Suburban every night for maybe 2 weeks until the apartment was finally ready. We moved in, and a couple of months later, my dad won custody of my 3 brothers and my sister, and they moved in with us too. Then my dad lost his job. We eventually got kicked out of the apartment. Pops couldn't pay, and the landlord had somebody else lined up who was willing to pay more anyway. So that was it for us. For the next 2 years or so, we basically lived out of our backpacks, hopping from motel to motel. Every now and then, my dad would snag an apartment, but it wouldn't last too long. And before we knew it, it was back to the motel. On good days, we'd find a spot that had a continental breakfast where we could sneak enough fruit and bagels to last us a whole day. On bad days, we would eat rice and beans or ramen noodles. I was the king of white rice and ramen noodles, man. A 5-star microwave chef. My dad used to buy them in big quantities so he could feed all of us. I'd cook for everybody. Some nights, though, when the food supply was really thin, my dad wouldn't eat. Let me repeat that. My dad wouldn't eat. I would try to give him some of my food, but he wouldn't let me. I didn't really understand it all at the time, the way we were living, the sacrifices my dad was making. None of it. I never understood it. I just never looked at our life as a struggle. To me, it was just life. It was all I knew. But now, looking back on it all, I understand. I understand how difficult it was for my dad, how frustrating it must have been. And he never took those frustrations out on us. Even on the worst nights, when we didn't have enough food to eat or any clothes to wear to school, the next day we would still laugh together. We didn't have game nights or movie nights. Pop used to have us sing. We'd write poetry, freestyle rap while the others beatbox. My older brothers would always draw. He wanted us to express ourselves, to engage with each other. Even when our stomachs were empty, we would spend all night laughing together as a family. I remember one night when money was at its tightest, my dad told me that if he went out on the street and sold drugs, we wouldn't have to worry about money or food or a place to live anymore. There was plenty of money out there to be had, but he said he would never do it for two reasons. One, it was too risky. If he got arrested or sent to jail, there would be nobody to take care of us kids, and he might lose us. And that was out of the question. And two, he said that the easy way out usually isn't the right way. He said it's hard work and perseverance that gets rewarded, not shortcuts. That's what he had been doing, working hard, persevering, trying to do the right things, hoping that everything would work out. Then the summer before I went into eighth grade, Pops landed a pretty steady job. We left the motels behind and moved into a house, the one in the rough part of town with the gunshots and the street fights and the helicopters. Food was still hard to come by. Money was still tight. Life was still a struggle, but we finally had a place to call home. Football wasn't an escape. I didn't play to take out my frustrations or to cope or to keep off the streets. I played because I loved it. It was his craft. By my junior year in high school, I knew I had potential. I thought I could be pretty good. By my senior year, I knew I could be special. And my stats were so ridiculous that when my coach sent them in to the local newspaper each week, they wouldn't even print them. They didn't believe them. They thought my coach was padding my stats to make me look good. I sat back and I watched as other kids with less impressive stats get their names in the paper and won all kinds of weekly awards. I was getting nothing. So my coach called up one of the reporters from the newspaper and told him to come down to McLean High School and watch me play in person, to come see for himself, which is why I would always tell people. That's why I use the eye test. Not Stephen A's, not Mel Kiper's, not Todd McShay. I use my own eye test. This was about halfway through my senior year. I was averaging around 300 rushing yards a game, but I still had no scholarship offers. I had 0 stars on the recruiting websites. I didn't just want to show that reporter what he had been missing. I wanted to show everybody. I scored the first touchdown of the game on a 65-yard run. By the end of the night, I had run for 455 yards and 6 touchdowns. And I did it all on just 22 carries. It was the best game of my high school career. My pops always preached that if you do the right things, everything else will work out. Control what you can control, and everything else will fall into place, he'd say. So it was crazy to me that even after that huge game, it was still crickets on the recruiting front. By the end of the season, I had better stats than some of the dudes in my area getting scholarship offers. And we had basically played against the same competition. Just doing the right things obviously wasn't working. I needed to do more. You hear that? I needed to do more. A lot of professionals out there, you understand, regardless of sport, they should take a chapter out of this guy's page. I needed to do more. But I didn't know what else to do. Couldn't afford football camps. My high school didn't have a history of big-time recruits, so college coaches rarely came to visit. We just weren't on their routes. And they don't usually go out of their way to just see one guy. Then my dad got a phone call from a random dude down in Texas. He said his name was G. Smith. He works with high school kids to help them get recruited. And he had stumbled upon my highlight tape while he was checking out some other recruits, and he was so impressed that he tracked me down and reached out. This is one of the best highlight tapes I've ever seen, he told my dad. It's like 12 minutes of straight touchdowns. How does he not have any offers? Coach Smith said he was going to help me get noticed. He told me to start a Twitter account and post my highlights, and he would take it from there. I don't know what he did, but like a day or two after I started posting my highlights, my phone started ringing off the hook. Wyoming, Missouri, New Mexico State, Purdue, Oklahoma. So many schools. Some of those phone calls turned into scholarship offers. That's when I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. I had more than just some interest. I had actual offers. So no matter what, I was going to school somewhere. Something not a lot of kids from my neighborhood get to do. Mark Emmert, while you benefiting off their backs. Wyoming was the first school to really show genuine interest in me, the first school to offer me. They were on me way before anybody else. 2 weeks before signing day, it was basically a lock. I was going to Wyoming. Then Alabama showed up. Ask anyone I grew up with. Alabama was my favorite team. I had wanted to play there since middle school. So when they came into the fold, it was a wrap. Everybody knows Alabama for being a football factory, for putting dudes in the NFL left and right. But I didn't look at it that way. I saw it as an opportunity to play against the most elite competition in college football and to get a quality education at the same time. Where I'm from, kids don't get either of those opportunities. Mark Emmert. So that was all I was focused on. Getting to the NFL was the absolute furthest thing from my mind. I honestly don't think I even considered the NFL as a possibility until the SEC championship game last year against Georgia. And y'all need to go back and watch that if you didn't see it. I had been sick the whole week, flu-like symptoms, that weak kind of sick where your back aches and you don't want to eat or stand up or even move. I was at the tail end of it by the time the game came around. But I had missed a lot of practice time that week. I still couldn't eat. I was dehydrated. I was in rough shape. The trainers tried to hold me out, but I told them, I'm playing. I got one IV before the game, 2 more during, and 1 after. Every time I came to the sideline, it felt like I was dying of thirst and I had no wind. So they had IVs and an oxygen mask, right there waiting for me. I only got 8 carries in the game, but I ran for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns, enough to win MVP. That was my Jordan flu game, man. I came out of that one knowing that if I could be in that kind of condition and not just fight through it but still ball out on that big a stage against a great defense like Georgia's, then I have what it takes to play at the next level. And if the Georgia game got me thinking about the NFL for the first time, the Oklahoma game basically punched my ticket. I felt like every time I touched the ball in that game, something special happened. And then he talks about his favorite play. I think everybody's favorite play, he says, was when I ran over the safety on my way to the end zone. The thing I loved most about that play is what happened after. Because the next few guys who tried to tackle me, they were easy targets, man. They were so worried about getting bulldozed that they were lunging at me. So I could lower the shoulder like I was going to try and run them over and then hit them with a juke and they'd go flying. I love setting up dudes like that. It's a chess game for me. I want to keep the defense guessing, keep them off balance. And I think that Oklahoma game is proof that I'm versatile enough to do that. I don't know. I guess I do. But I honestly don't think it's about how I run. It's about why I do it and who I do it for. I run for my pops, the man who sacrificed so much and worked so hard to provide for me and educate me. I run for my 3-year-old son, Braxton, so he can have a father he's proud of, like I'm proud of mine. I run for my sister and my 3 brothers. I run for my teammates and my coaches. I run for everybody who has ever supported me, anyone who's ever doubted me, and for anyone out there living on white rice and ramen noodles. I run for anyone who's in a tough situation and feels like it's never going to end, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I run to show them that there is. Then when I'm totally spent, when I'm on my last leg and I have absolutely nothing left to give, I dig even deeper and I run for me because I love it, because it's what I do. That's the kind of player you're going to get if you draft me. Someone who loves the game of football, a hard worker who's totally dedicated to the team and to winning. You'll get a fresh, healthy back because I split carries at Alabama. They didn't use me up. So I'm a low mileage guy who's ready to run up the odometer and shoulder the load. But most of all, you'll get a player who is very appreciative. I'm never going to forget the night spent in the back of that Suburban. I'll never forget the motels or the gunshots or the helicopters. I know what it's like to be scared, to be hungry, to have nothing in my future but uncertainty. So I'm never going to take the privilege of playing in the NFL for granted. I'm going to come in and sacrifice whatever is necessary to succeed. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to put that work in and do the right thing, like my pops always said. Everything else will fall into place. People say I run angry. Josh Jacobs, running back for Alabama. Brother Rich, go ahead, weigh in, man.
I don't know what I added to that. Go ahead.
No, it's on Brother Rich. Go ahead, Brother Rich.
I mean, I don't know what much to be added to that in terms of he's a young, prolific athlete telling us his story, and oftentimes we don't hear his story. And you told us his story, and in terms of where this young man's coming from and what's powering his motor. That's what I was hearing.
Good deal. What about you, Double J?
You know, it is a hard act to follow. I mean, he has the right to do and say whatever he feels is going to ultimately be in his best interest. And again, when you read that story, powerful. Anyone can look themselves in the mirror after hearing something like that and can understand that regardless of what industry, profession, or career that they're in, they can do something more because of, again, regardless of the circumstances that they find themselves in, they can push themselves that much further after hearing something like that.
Yeah, I just, I'm so glad that, because this story was actually sent to me, excuse me, by a Facebook colleague. I guess I done got I don't know the word for it, but, I'm the guy, hey, if it's a good one, Jay will put it out there for us. You know what I'm saying? I got that label as the guy I'll say it. Because I'm all about substance, man. And we losing sight of that. There's nothing wrong with rooting for your favorite team or your favorite player or all of that. I mean, because at the end of the day, we get it as sports and it's entertainment. But guess what? It's not just entertainment. This is folks' lives we talking about, man. I mean, come on. I can't tell you how many times, man, I'm looking at a Facebook thread. And the only reason I still keep any of these social media sites is because of what we do here. Because otherwise, I'd be done with it. We have gotten away from or lost sight of the things that are standards. But yet and still, here's what's really interesting. It's the folks who have no moral fibers or no integrity be the first ones talking about integrity or moral fiber. This whole NCAA and this compensatory thing and whatnot is not going away, and it shouldn't go away. And even if it begins to go away, I'm going to bring it back up. Because on one hand, we tell our children to know your worth. And then to hear fans say, oh, he ain't worth $75 million. Why? Why not? Apparently, the guy who writing the checks think he worth it. I'm going to say again, man, I'll talk about a player's performance all day long. Because you can do that. You can critique a player's performance. Why you shot that? Why you didn't shoot that? Why you ain't go to the basket? Man, come on, man. This is why I talk about film study. And my man Kobe Bryant, I mean, he done took it a step further. He called his, what's it called, Brother Rich? Detailed?
Detailed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm do that all day long. But the minute I hear somebody say something about he can't stay on the field or he always injured, I'm like, football? You remember the infamous post-game press of Jim Mora. Playoffs? Playoffs? AI, man. We talking about practice, man. We talking about players huh? What we doing here? Unfortunately, when I hear stuff like that, man, I try to debate my equals. And then, everybody else I teach. But for some folk, man, I'm saying to myself, man, and I don't devalue or disrespect anybody's opinion. I don't. When you give yours, I just make sure I got enough information to come back at you. That's all. I don't have to cross the line, but I'll say that, say this and that. In those cases, that's flat out ignorance. Or a player ain't worth that. When you, again, Brother Rich, let me run this by you again now. We just read this guy's story. How is he not worth whatever he's being offered or whatever they're going to give him? In real talk, how is he not worth more?
Well, again, Jay, I feel like I'm beating the proverbial dead horse on this.
Well, beat the horse then. Just beat the horse.
For me, there's never an issue here. Never an issue in terms of understanding that, as Shaquille O'Neal himself said, you have billionaires against millionaires. And in the NFL's case, you have billionaires
against thousandaires.
Against 100,000.
Yeah.
They don't even have these. So, this is a situation where anytime a young talent who has exhausted and has proven their mettle in such a violent sport, which Jay, there is empirical data now. We can't debate this anymore.
Right.
A young man in one of the most beautiful cities in the world decided that whatever was happening in his head was so disturbing that he went and shot himself in San Diego. We all know.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Listen.
You talking about Junior Seau?
Killing themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is what brought CTE to the forefront in the modern day. Is Junior Seau's case. I was living in San Diego when this happened. It shocked the entire state.
Yeah.
Jay, listen. You can't have people justifying that I am justified in having you run into another human being, something you're not supposed to do, in a violent way for 2+ hours each day, where this person is literally trying to physically assault you. And I heard Shannon Sharp, no less than Shannon Sharp, say football is the only sport in the world where you can violently destroy another man and it's legal. Listen, this is what you're asking me to subject my body to. And then when I say to you, have I done well, sir? You say, well, you've done so well that you've done too well and you're not worth anything to me anymore. So I'll just get rid of you and get somebody else that will. This is what we're saying here, brother.
Yeah.
This is what we're saying to the world about. Look at what's happening in football. You got people that cannot walk anymore. You got black, white, red, yellow, brown. They are just working these young men like pack mules.
Yeah. Yeah. And
there are other gentlemen who survived. What is the brother, the guy who played for Oakland, who, when I was just learning about this sport, he was playing for Oakland. I'll tell you a story. Both of you probably know his name right away. He played for Oakland, but they say he took a lot of steroids and he got canceled later on. And he said you talking about
Lyle Alzado?
He was a steroid. What is his name?
Lyle Alzado.
That guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he played with the Browns too, actually.
This sport. I didn't know. I don't know where he played.
I
just remember that. I used to see him in commercial where he would say that, look, I took these steroids for football, literally destroyed his body. Destroyed it.
They did. He ended up passing, I believe. Didn't he? He did pass, didn't he, Double J?
He's gone. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. And again, we continue to discuss things of this nature because I saw something else a few days ago about the NFL eliminating 2 preseason games. Did you see that, Double J?
Absolutely.
Yeah. They talking about eliminating 2 preseason games and adding adding those 2 additional games to the regular season and whatnot. And I'm saying to myself, man, I mean, that's good for the fans and all of that kind of stuff. And then, one more time about the fans. They're so quick to talk about loyalty. Loyalty. Be loyal to yourself first, foremost. Know your worth. Ain't that what we send our kids out here to do? They're talking about adding these games, these additional games or whatnot. But it's interesting how it's the people that ain't doing it always making changes to it. Do you find that interesting? ironic, or whatever the case may be, Double J? No? Maybe? You still with me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That wasn't rhetorical. No, I'm asking you. Do you find that interesting?
Well, of course. Now, here's I think a valid statistic that a lot of people think may not realize, especially when it comes to his position specifically. The shelf life, the average lifespan of a running back is 5 years. So he has to get his money right now. Again, we've always talked about is his story up to this point. Again, that's a lot of tread on the tires from what he's done in high school, what he's done in college, and now he's to this point. So he has to cash in now. Again, it is know your value, and from a fan standpoint, it's about loyalty. But again, he's got to do what's right for him. And when you think of a 10-year NFL vet, it does not come generally from the running back position.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. It's usually one of the quarterback maybe. That would be the only one I could think of. You might have a couple offensive linemen here and there. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. So when you say, well, guys depending on the position, if you're a defensive back and you got 10 years, you need an extra bonus or something. Is that what you're saying?
Well, right, but you have time to cash in. There's a reason why you see it with cornerbacks. The DBs. Look at how many contracts Revis had gotten in comparison to Marshawn Lynch or Matt Forte. Even Matt Forte, he surpassed what it was. But again, that's why he left Chicago and went to the Jets, because he went to cash in, because he knew this was going to be the last deal that he was going to get.
Interesting. So now the shelf life of a running back, is that 5 years? Is that on purpose? In other words, is it already predetermined by the higher ups? Like, look, I don't care how well he doing or ain't doing, whatever it is. We only, it's 5 years. It's 5 years, so to speak. Or is that just actually
correct?
Okay, yeah.
And that's why I gave you the ding there, because that's exactly why you generally don't see running backs getting drafted in the top 10, almost not even in the first round.
Yeah, so it's a predetermined number, so to speak, amongst owners and
exactly. All
management.
Analytics at this point.
Okay, and not necessarily due to the nature of the sport, though, or is it that also weighs in?
Oh, absolutely, because again, look at the position itself; they're getting hit on every play.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, so in other words, even in a running back's first year in the NFL, you basically saying, folks around the league are like, yeah, I don't care how good he do this first year or whatever. We only giving him 5. He only getting 5 years. No matter how well he do or how well he don't do, we only giving him 5 years.
But gentlemen, aren't you both making the case? You're making the case in and of itself, because if let's look at that. If a running back's lifespan is 5 years, the typical running back who's going to give you those 5 years, let's take the young man in
Le'Veon Bell.
What's his
name? Ezekiel Elliot.
Ezekiel Elliot. No, Le'Veon Bell is a better example. Let's go with him.
Yeah.
Because they at least won with him. Le'Veon Bell, let's look at that. His example keeps coming up over and over again.
Yes,
Here's a young
does.
man that comes out of nowhere and begins to crush the league in terms of what he contributes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. A storied franchise, a franchise that we're not worried about whether or not they're going to profit. People wear Steelers brands all over the world. Their brand alone has to be worth several $1 billion. Now, compensatory care and concern for even your animal, your dog, your horse, you take it to the best groomer and this. But when it's time to even put it away, you don't just get rid of it. You put it in. You at least want to do it in a care and concern. You don't just want to kick me to the curb and make me know I don't have any value to you whatsoever.
Yeah.
So wouldn't these brands benefit more if they took care of these athletes and took and made them legacies and parts of their franchises? in terms of just their understanding that, and many of them do it. Many of them do it, but those are the superstar, megastar, megawatt athletes. But traditionally, you just gonna kick them to the curb because somebody who went to school who never played a down and couldn't play one to save their life has gone into a computer and developed a software that told me this man's life and his career is only worth 5 years to me, and I should look at him as a human being.
Yeah.
I can't rock with that.
Yeah, I can't either. I'm glad you said it that way, bro, Rich. I can't rock with it either. That's why we're going to keep doing what we're doing and the way we're doing it. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? I'm all for the players, man, when it comes to this, man. Especially in the NFL, man. I think that them guys, and that's one thing, that Brown effect, man, it didn't trickle down to the NFL, but we need to see more of it in the NFL. Guys figuring out a way, man, to negotiate maybe 1 or 2, 3-year deals. What you think, Double J? You think that'll work? Especially if I'm
absolutely. You can go back to when Chester Taylor signed with the Chicago Bears from Minnesota. He did a front-loaded deal. Again, it makes it where he, as the years went on, he remained on the team. He maintained a roster spot simply because it was less of a cap hit. So it was actually more affordable to the team. And on top of that, from his perspective, he had already gotten 60% of what the contract's entire value was.
Got you.
Even though the numbers were on the decline.
Got you. Yeah, that's all I'm looking for here. I'm looking for solutions for the players in terms of they can't level the playing field, of course, with the owners, but to bring the balance a little bit closer. I'm all for the players having control when it comes to the compensation of this whole thing, man. And the time, I just, again, man, especially after talking to Herm a few times, I was never one of them folks to look at sports and just look at the manifest aspect of it, that which is on the surface you can see with the naked eye, so to speak. I always had to dig, Maybe that's why the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and all of them were some of my favorite books. I'm one of them, Encyclopedia Brown. It's got to be more to it than this, type deal. But, man, at the end of the day, man, these NFL players especially, man, they need to get more. And, for the sake of comparison.
Which is why I saw something trending on Twitter yesterday, and I'm really hoping that there's some track line. Both of you could probably edify me on this as to what's happening, because I heard that they're actually literally, truly talking about sitting out, which is the only thing they can do. They have to sit out and fight.
You talking about the social organizations the NFL is contributing to or something?
No, in terms of aren't the players, I read something that said some of the players are seriously considering sitting out in terms of the negotiations with the league this time. This negotiation around.
Yeah.
NFL players, they're so ridiculously paid. They have to take a stand. They're going to have to do it now.
Yeah, they're so ridiculously underpaid. Yes, for sure. Matter of fact, Double J, was it DeMaurice Smith? Yeah, he just came out not even a week ago and was saying that even though the next CBA is not up until 2021? No, it's this upcoming.
Correct.
Yeah, or is it 2020?
Yeah.
Is it next year?
2020, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's already. Go ahead, say that again.
I was going to say it's at the end of the end of next season.
Okay, got you. So there, DeMaurice Smith, what the heck is he? The players rep or whatever the case may be for the players.
But he's the players rep. He's the head of the players rep.
Right. So he said,
head of the players union.
Yeah. He said he's already come out and told folks, y'all better, maybe start saving some money, packing your bags. I don't know, whatever else the case may be. Because, in other words, get prepared, prepare yourselves for another work stoppage. And Brother Rich, to your point, you're saying, should there be another work stoppage, these cats need to sit out. They need to demand more.
I think that there's a coalition coming together.
Go ahead, finish that. What you say? Coalition coming together, you say?
To do exactly that.
Yeah. Because it's not just just the monies and things that need to be addressed, okay, in this next CBA. It's this whole deal about, Kaepernick and Incognito Incognito got you know what I mean? He got another opportunity. Where's my man Cap? You know, I'm just saying. And according to all the stuff I done read, this Incognito guy is, I mean, boy, he's beyond foul. Yeah. But I digress. So at the end of the day, you know, all I say when I read this story about Josh Jacobs, man, is get yours, young fella. Get yours. Because it's high time that them folks who haven't lived the life that he's lived and that I've lived, you can never really, you know, understand it unless you've experienced it. But it's high time, man, for y'all to start understanding, hey, if I'm telling you this is the life I live, man, then it's got to be some sort of the stuff on the other end got to match. You know, it's got to you know, you can't give me $2, you know, for a 22-month tour in Vietnam. You know what I'm trying to tell you? Or some of these compensation packages we've seen for guys that have been in prison for 35 years and innocently, you know, and in cities that imprisoned them, falsely accused them, and whatever the case may be, you don't want to turn around and say, hey, you know, we don't owe you nothing. I'm just saying, man, fair exchange ain't no robbery. Right? People say I run angry. And on that note, it's been fun. Excuse me, fellas. Sorry about that. And on that note, it's been fun, but we got to run. We appreciate y'all for listening. Don't forget to check us out right here on the Spreaker.com network. You go to the search box and you type in the Shop Report. Or you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, and, of course, via email, the Shop Report 365@gmail.com. And, of course, we are now back on Google Play Podcast. And if that don't work, Google it for my guest, the man NYC, a.k.a. Rucker Park, Brother Rich, and my cat from up north, Joey James, a.k.a. Double J, and all those who follow us on social media. We say thank you for your support. I'm Barbershop Jay, and you've been listening to the Shop Report. And remember, man, the next time y'all want to know what's really going on, come to the shop. Walk-ins are always welcome. Holla.